Yanai.
Only this end.
Only this end. Yanai, okay. So Yanai. So Yanai, as Yanai, he's not eternal. As a person, you're eternal. So you, the person, you will always be a person. Person doesn't necessarily mean human, yeah? So you as a person, you as Yanai, it's different. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay. Then the fourth quality. All right. So those the first three qualities, I may as well say it ahead. Those refer to the Buddha's mind. No, sorry, not the Buddha's mind. They refer to the Buddha's quality. Well, the quality that of benefit to the Buddha himself. They benefit the Buddha himself. They don't benefit us. The absence of any obscurations, they don't directly benefit us. We cannot communicate with them. They don't benefit us directly. Neither does the fact that we cannot perceive it directly benefit us, nor does the emptiness of the Buddha's mind directly benefit us. It's something abstract, it's something unconditioned, so therefore in both cases it doesn't benefit us directly. But then there are the qualities that benefit sentient beings that are of our benefit, that benefit us. The fourth quality is the direct knowledge of the Buddha's direct knowledge of knowing all phenomena. That benefits us. Then the fifth quality is that the Buddha possesses great love for all sentient beings, and that the Buddha has the ability to eradicate, to eliminate disciples' faults and imperfections. Does that make sense? Right? That's not so hard to understand. So, and then 7 and 8, they're just saying the seventh quality is the quality of a Buddha fulfilling his own benefit. The first 3 of the 8 are subsumed under the seventh quality because the 2 nature bodies primarily benefit the Buddha. Whereas the last, the 4th, 5th and 6th qualities are subsumed under the 8th quality. They belong to the 8th quality because it is primarily due to the qualities of knowledge, love and ability that a Buddha benefits sentient beings. Okay? So sometimes people ask, for instance, when we meditate on bodhicitta, okay? If you meditate on bodhicitta, you're a bodhisattva. Are you more important or are sentient beings more important? Sentient beings. Are sentient beings more important than you?
You are a sentient being.
All other sentient beings. All other sentient beings, are they more important than yourself?
When you are bodhisattva,
Actually, yes?
It depends on whom.
No. But, I mean, you still could say, is this long or short? Of course it depends on whom, for whom, but you can still say, it is or it's not, right? Is it or is it not? No. So a sentient being is not more important than a bodhisattva. All other sentient beings, are they more important than a bodhisattva? Actually, they should be equal, right? So why the whole thing about all sentient beings are so more important than myself because they outnumber me and all that? Why? Because we need to go from one extreme, me, to another extreme. But are actually sentient beings more important? Or Buddha? No, they're equally important. And so when we practice to be a bodhisattva, when they practice, there's so much emphasis on others, but His Holiness was once asked during an audience, some students asked His Holiness, well, there's so much emphasis on other sentient beings. Does that mean other sentient beings are more important than oneself? And His Holiness said, no. Even in the case of a Buddha, because there's the own benefit body, or the own quality, the qualities of a Buddha, in Tibetan it's like own quality, own benefit quality, and other benefit quality. It's really just saying qualities that mainly benefit Buddha, and qualities that mainly benefit sentient beings. So even the Buddha has some advantage. So things like qualities that attributes or characteristics that a Buddha has that don't benefit directly sentient beings, but mainly the Buddha himself. And so the whole goal is that you work towards a state that benefits you equally as it benefits sentient beings, because that would be absurd if you were not part of it. We're not looking for a state where you are miserable and sentient beings are well. You would never work towards it. But anyway, what Vada was saying, what I think she meant was, actually, if I say as a bodhisattva, all sentient beings are more important than myself, okay? It's impossible that they are more important than myself, because from the perspective of one of those sentient beings, I am part of all sentient beings who are more important than that person. And then from another perspective, right? I think that's what Vada was thinking. So from the perspective of another person, again, everyone else is more important. So even logically, if that is true from the perspective of every sentient beings, that would make everyone, again, equally important. And so the whole emphasis on all sentient beings more important, they outnumber me, etc., it's not really literally saying one is more important than the other, but there's a purpose for that, because we're so out of whack. We're like so fallen into the extreme of just thinking I, me, and mine, which is why now we need to balance it to go to the other extreme. All other sentient beings are more important, and hope that eventually we'll find a balance. Okay? I'm just saying that because that question does come up.
It sounds to me a bit peculiar.
Okay.
You know that there are that Buddha's his own benefit. We use this title, other benefit, or same reason for own benefit. But the Bodhisattva has not a milligram of thinking about himself along all the way.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I learned.
No, of course the Bodhisattva doesn't have a self-interest. No, exaggerated, but of course the wish to be happy. That
Only for
no.
He's motivated by wishing to be better than others. He wants very quickly to reach enlightenment in order to make others. This is the main motive to reach enlightenment.
Yes, but it doesn't say he doesn't have any self-concern. When we use the word self-concern, we talk about self-cherishing. That is an exaggerated version of wishing to be happy. A bodhisattva still has the wish to be happy.
What I meant.
Oh, what you meant, okay.
That even when we say for his own benefit, I thought. I know that we use this
phrase,
for
yeah.
his own benefit.
Yeah.
But he has no wish to benefit himself. That's why.
Of course he wishes to benefit himself. He wants to become enlightened for his own and others' benefit.
Sorry?
Yes. Actually,
The fact that he can realize this, the first two and the third quality, and I cannot, doesn't mean for me,
yeah.
maybe I misunderstand,
Okay.
doesn't mean that it serves his own benefit. It means, I know that the phrase is there,
Yeah.
but it means that I cannot get it now, but I'm benefiting from all his qualities, because his spontaneity, his bodhicitta, and spontaneously, effortlessly, continuously benefit me and others. So I enjoy all his qualities, only I cannot, I have difficulties accepting, maybe I should change my mind, but I have difficulties accepting that the phrase benefit his own,
Own benefit body or own benefit qualities.
means that it's only to distinction that the other group that I can realize or understand or directly benefit. But everything is for my benefit. The whole existence of the Buddha is for my benefit. Because he is here to help us.
Yeah, but I think it's really important that even a bodhisattva still has the wish to be happy. A bodhisattva would be happy if a bodhisattva is successful in bringing happiness to others. So happy about the happiness of others, of course, happy for others, but also happy that he or she was able to contribute, to make a difference. Also wanting, I think the problem is when we say own benefit, because usually our wish to benefit ourselves is always exaggerated. There's always a sense of I'm more important, etc. Now, there is a balanced way in which you can also aim towards your own benefit. It's not your main goal, but it's still a goal. And so therefore, this is stressed, this is shown when you look at the qualities, when you learn about the qualities of a Buddha. The qualities of a Buddha, they always stress, those are the qualities that benefit the Buddha. Rangdun in Tibetan, Shendun. Dön means benefit in this context. Rang means self. Self-benefit. Shendun, other benefit. Okay, very clearly says in those words. So it's stressing that you shouldn't go to the other extreme. To the other extreme. That would actually destroy you. If you were totally ignoring your own needs, you couldn't become a Buddha. You cannot totally ignore your own needs because you're also a sentient being. So your happiness is actually equally important. And the only reason you're not putting the same emphasis on your own happiness, because that's what you've done for so long, and that would automatically lead to self-cherishing. If you put the same equal emphasis, right? That would actually lead you back into your old habits. So you put more emphasis on others, but you cannot totally ignore yourself. That would be important. And then people who work themselves to death, that is not what we mean here. You still need to look after your own health, etc. And yes, you do it for others more than for yourself, but also for yourself. You don't want to get sick. You don't want to be unhappy unless it benefits others. Okay, unless it benefits others, you take on unhappiness. But if it doesn't benefit others, why would you suffer? Why would you suffer? If it doesn't benefit others, you don't need to undergo suffering because your own needs are also important. In fact, they're equally important. You just don't want to think along those lines because otherwise you go back into the extreme. I think that's quite important. That's quite important to understand. And so it is very much stressed when you learn about the qualities of the Buddha. I don't know whether if you learn in English about it, it's stressed that much, but here you go. 7th and 8th, it stresses the fact that there are 3 that mainly benefit the Buddha and 3 that mainly benefit sentient beings. Equal. Right? And His Holiness's argument was, yes, we're equally important because, giving that reason. Does that make sense? I think that's quite important because to give yourself up, you fall into the extreme of nihilism. I'm not important. I give myself up. You could actually fall into the extreme of nihilism to deny your own existence, possibly. Your own happiness is not important. Nothing is important. You're not important. Wow, that could be actually dangerous. Right? So I think when it says your concern is only for others, it's talking about yes.
Isn't part of the path reaching bodhicitta renunciation, the wish to be free of dukkha myself? Isn't that one of the
That's
steps?
true. Yeah, what is renunciation? Renunciation is the wish for myself to be free from suffering. Unless I had that, that's actually a very good point. Unless I had that, I couldn't generate compassion. Because unless I want myself to be free from nirvana and free from samsara, unless I want myself to be free from samsara, why would I want it for others? Right? I mean, if I'm attached to samsara and I love sentient beings, I want them to have samsara. It's as simple as that. So if I see the disadvantages of samsara, right, without attachment, and then I have love and compassion for others, I'm thinking, boy, I don't want to be in that mess, in that state of attachment and being under the control of karma, etc. And look, others, they're right now suffering. I don't want them to have that state. So unless you understand the disadvantages for yourself, you can't want others to be free. That's why we start off with, everything starts off with me. Unless I love myself, I can't love others. Unless I'm patient with myself, I can't have patience with others. Unless I want myself to be free from samsara, I can't want it for others. If I'm attached to samsara, I want everyone to have attachment. If I'm attached to samsara and I can't let go, why would others? I would them to want have samsaric happiness themselves, because that's what I want for myself. Right? It's very important. So yes, it's a good point. So what you want for yourself, you also want for others. You want to become enlightened, right? Your main focus is to become enlightened for the benefit of others. That's your main focus. But you also want it for yourself, right? And even if it's just to benefit others, but you still want it for yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, great. No, I'm glad you bring it up. Because it's easily... And I used to not be sure until they asked this question, and then as Helmut talked about the two kayas, the one for the benefit of oneself and the one for others, and then it became clear. Yeah. All right. Now, the meaning of the Dharma jewel. So this is a very unusual way in which we look at the Buddha jewel. We would probably expect a different explanation, but you've learned something that is part of the whole idea of own benefit, other benefit, those two qualities and what they refer to, etc. All right, now let's look at the meaning of the nature of the Dharma jewel. Two qualities. Okay, the first one is inconceivable. Here it's just saying it is free from the inconceivable, that is, it's inaccessible to the analysis of the four extreme by words or conceptual consciousness. So in other words, the Dharma is free from the four extremes. It's not conceivable as being truly existent. It's not conceivable to be non-existent. It is not conceivable being both or neither. So this is just saying inconceivable in the sense it just isn't those. It isn't any of those four extremes. The second quality is that the Dharma is free from contaminated karma and afflictions. Does that make sense? The Dharma is free from contaminated karma and afflictions. Okay. So what is it? The first three refer to the truth of cessation. So the absence of suffering, just that absence of suffering, absence of elimination of obscurations. That's what the Dharma refers to, the cessation, the truth of cessation. It is free from any of the extremes of inherent existence. We may think, oh, nirvana, the absence of suffering, the cessation of suffering, that exists truly. But it doesn't exist truly. It's also just labeled and is not non-existent, because right now in our continuum it's non-existent, but in the continuum of certain beings it is existent. Secondly, it's not affected by contaminated karma or afflictions. Okay? And the third quality is it is free from the exaggerating. It's not affected by the conceptual awareness that exaggerates, that sees something as truly pleasant, truly unpleasant, or truly neutral. Okay, that's the exaggerating attitude. Kind of seems so random, but basically it's saying because we haven't reached the cessation of suffering, that is, we haven't reached the cessation of the afflictive emotions, we are under the control of those three. Afflictions in general, okay, including the misperception of reality, so not understanding that phenomena so grasping at true existence, which then gives rise to the next problem, which here it's called the conceptual awareness of improper engagement. It's just the exaggerating mind. What is that exaggerating mind? How do we get from the misapprehension of reality to anger? How do we come from the misapprehension of reality to attachment? How do we come from the misapprehension of reality to other confusions? And it's said that mainly, in particular with attachment and anger, you don't go directly from a misapprehension of reality and become angry right away. Impossible. You need another mind that bridges the anger and the root apprehension, which means first you apprehend an object to be truly existent, and then you experience this object, for instance, as pleasant. But instead of understanding that the pleasure comes from your own mind, you project the pleasure onto the object. as if it was truly pleasurable. And the stronger your pleasure in that moment, the more likely are you to exaggerate the pleasure of the object. And if it continues, it gives you pleasure over a long period of time, then that sense it's just pleasurable, it gives you real pleasure. That exaggerating attitude then leads to attachment. Your attachment does not exaggerate at the same time as it grasps. The exaggeration precedes it. First it's exaggerating the positive, the pleasure, and then you hold on, and that's the attachment. So the exaggerating attitude continues on to transform into a mind that now, due to this exaggerated perception, it holds on to the object. Does that make sense? Anger is the same, just the other way around. First, you perceive something as unpleasant, but the displeasure is your own mind experiences that only in relation to this object. Then your mind thinks unpleasant. In that moment, there's no exaggeration yet. But because the object seems intrinsically to be whatever, a person, and intrinsically, first you label person, seems to be intrinsically a person. Then you label unpleasant. So a moment later, you feel this unpleasantness comes from the side of the object. And then resentment arises. Like not wanting to be away from that person. So it's like this exaggerating attitude transforms into anger, in that exaggeration still continues on, but then an emotional response sets in. So the mind of anger exaggerates the negativity of the object, but not newly, because a previous mind has already exaggerated, and then there's an emotional response, which is that of, I want to get away. I don't like, I resent this person, whatever. Does that make sense? Right? So this is, therefore, our problem is not just the basic misapprehension. No, our problem is the basic root misapprehension, which gives rise to an exaggerated version of pleasant or unpleasant, or even an exaggerated version of, I don't care, not interesting to me, right? If it's neutral, I'm indifferent towards it. It leads to indifference. I couldn't care less, because it's intrinsically neither benefits me nor harms me, so I couldn't care less. It leads to indifference. So those are all extreme reactions out of the exaggerating attitude. That then leads to anger, aversion, indifference, jealousy, arrogance, all these different afflictive emotions, which in turn leads to certain actions that are now influenced by the other afflictions, which is why we say they're contaminated. You know, like an action itself is not contaminated. Like a cake itself is not contaminated. One rotten egg, the whole cake is contaminated. So the afflictions are like adding one rotten egg, even if it's a virtuous action. If there is an exaggeration of the object, and I engage in a virtuous action, it's still contaminated. Does that make sense? All right. So that's important. This is what's stressed here, saying that the cessation is the absence of all those. The cessation is the absence because you remove the basic misapprehension. If that is removed, they're no longer affected, neither by contaminated karma, nor afflictions, nor the exaggerated attitude. Does that make sense? Yes? So it's kind of like in a very indirect way teaching us the cessation is being free from all those. None of those are there, right? You can love, you can have compassion, you can see things for what they are. All that balagan, all these emotions, right now, I mean, think about it. You're not even aware of this. We're trapped in this, in these emotional responses. We can't help it. And the moment you're miserable, the moment you feel miserable, you can be sure that a moment earlier there was one of the afflictions. You can be sure in that moment. Isn't that bizarre? So you only become aware, I'm a little unhappy. Be sure, a little bit earlier. Just need to dig, find the attachment, find the exaggeration, right? It's there, it's always there. Okay? So I think this is why this is so beautiful, telling us the cessation is it's mainly the absence. It's the absence of all these states. That's the third quality. All right. Next, the fourth quality is that the Dharma is pure. Here now we're talking not about the cessations, we're talking about the mind that perceives phenomena as they really are. That is the mind that perceives reality, that perceives emptiness, for instance. That is pure, because that is not affected by the misapprehension of reality. Obviously, why not? Because it perceives the opposite. So it cannot be affected, especially when you realize it directly. And that's what an Arya path is, basically a mind that is either referring to the mind realizing emptiness directly, or that is conjoined with that. So in that sense, it's pure. The fifth quality refers to the mind being luminous, as in like, it clearly, luminosity, when the mind is luminous, it usually means it has the ability to directly know. Either things can appear to it, or here in this case it actually means for the mind it can clearly know the variety of phenomena, the conventional truth, and their mode of existence. Conventional truth and ultimate truth, it can know those, right? You can know the ultimate nature, of course you realize it directly, and when you arise from that you can also know conventional truth, and a Buddha can even do both. Does that make sense? So variety of phenomena is just another word for saying conventional truth. With ultimate truth, you don't have variety. Is there variety? A blue type, a green type, a bigger type? No, it's just good old emptiness. Absence of inherent existence. There's no variety. So variety is only possible when you have conventional truth. Okay? Conventional truth refers to the variety of things that appear to us. And the mode of existence is their emptiness. Alright, so those are the qualities. Actually, I mean, it's so difficult. It's not easy. Those 8 qualities contain so much. But I ask you, do you want to go quickly or understand it? You chose understanding.
I got confused.
You got confused, okay. Just 1 second.
We are talking about the Dharma, or the mind that perceives the Dharma, or...
Okay. All right, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Strictly speaking, what does the Dharma refer to?
The teaching. Strictly, the mind of Arya.
The mind of the Aryas, and? Strictly speaking. Truth of cessation, truth of the path. Truth of cessations are cessations, irrevocable cessations. Truth of the path are the Arya path, then are those which bring about the cessations, right? So they are... Yeah? Okay. No, you just got stuck.
Yeah.
Pardon.
Because all the things of the refuge, we actually aim to be there and to achieve. We first depend on them, but actually it's what we want to achieve.
Yes?
Is there a parallel between the points that are written here, two different things that we achieve in different paths, in different buoys?
I know from Bada, there's always something there when she asks a question. I need to just understand it.
All of a sudden it came to my mind and I don't know, so I'm asking.
Yeah, but I don't know what you mean. I think there probably is something there, but I'm not sure yet. Just take a moment and think about it, okay? All right. Okay, so... the fourth quality, the Dharma. So here the last 3 refer to the minds that realize reality. They're pure in that they're not affected by the afflictions, okay, because they realize the opposite. Then they're luminous in that they can take to mind. This person is ready to understand the difference between ultimate and conventional truth. Once you realize ultimate truth directly, you can now understand whether something is a conventional truth or not. You can only understand that something is a conventional truth after you understood the ultimate truth. Right? Okay? You can only understand that something is a conventionally existent phenomenon once you understand the ultimate truth. Both is true. You can understand that something isn't conventional truth. First you understand its ultimate truth, then you know what is a conventional truth. And you can also only know that something exists conventionally